If you owned a piece of land in Liverpool and you wanted to build an office building on it, and you got an okay from the zoning board, you have things called zoning boards?
No, but we have planning authorities, and they're probably about the same thing.
You couldn't just go ahead and build it?
Well, you could now if you got permission from the planning authority.
But not if they pass this monstrosity?
Oh, no, because you will have to sell that land to the local authority at its existing use value, and then they will decide who shall develop it and lease it back to someone, and then the development can take place.
Cui bono?
But in fact, they will lease it back at the new use value, and they will pocket the difference. So you may sell land which is current use value as open space value and get it back, have to purchase it back or lease it back at its building value. And that, of course, is enormously different.
That's sort of an inversion of Henry George, isn't it? He wanted to tax the whole of the rent, but allow all of the profits from development to stay in private hands.
Way back in about the first decade of this century, yes. There have been several goes at it. We think it's quite wrong.
Does the Conservative Party have a counterpart proposal? And if so, what is it?
We prefer the taxation line, that it's far better to deal with these things. No, to tax the difference in value. We far prefer to have the taxation solution than to have an extra bureaucracy, tipping the scales against the citizen too much.
So that if somebody who found himself owning 10 acres of land saw that he could profitably use it for a shopping center, let us say, you would want to tax what? The putative increase in the value of that land if the shopping center is financed and turns out to be successful?
You'd have to do it after it was a realized gain, otherwise you come up against enormous problems.
But it's not a realized gain until he sells it, is it?
No, that's right.
Suppose he operates it himself.
Yes, but you'd have to tax it after it's realized, otherwise you come up against enormous problems. You get problems then with the date of realization, etc. But equally you get problems which you'd have to solve on capital gains, because then you have to tax at the point of realization. And so if you had an extra tax upon top of the capital gains tax, that would be the same thing. Capital gains tax with us is about 30% or more if it's a company.
And have you suggested an appropriate level?
No.
Now, is much of this traceable to the resentment of the huge profits made by individual Englishmen during the past 10 years in selling their houses and their lots here and there as a result of the tremendous escalation in the value of land?
I think there were certain resentments brought about where people had land, particularly those people who had, say, farming land, say 150 or 200 acres, which was then sold, and you got a massive housing development on it. Well, of course, overnight, the value of the land went up enormously. The agricultural value of the land might have been about, well, now it would be about £500 or £600 an acre. Actually, it went up higher than that, about £1,000 an acre. But then it might have gone up to an enormous amount, £250,000, even more than that an acre, £250,000 an acre. And naturally there were certain resentments, and I think it would have been better, I think we all recognise it would have been better now, had we moved earlier on increasing the taxation. In fact, Tony Barber did put up a plan, a rather complicated one, in December 1973 for dealing with it. And some of that has already been passed into law by the present government. But we were slightly late on dealing with it, I think, from the viewpoint of public opinion, though it's an extremely complicated one, and I know we felt it was important to get the right equitable answer, but not to stop desirable development. You can stop everything very easily. That's not really the function of politicians.
I can understand that the rental value of land ought to be taxed very highly, it being one of the three constituent elements in the fundamental economic equation, which is not expansible, unlike labor and capital. I can understand, therefore, a policy that says undeveloped land is going to be taxed at a high rate. But does that justify taxing it at an extraordinary rate merely because it turns out to become valuable as a result of the attraction of the surrounding property?
Not at an extraordinary rate, no. One would say that taxation should be equitable, question then is what is equitable. And as you know, one has many, many debates about that. But under the present policy, you'll be compelled to sell cheap and compelled to buy back very dear. And we don't think, therefore, that very much development will take place. So you'll move to another element of compulsion.